everyone, welcome to New Bear. I'm Monique and today you're in my kitchen. How often do you go to work a project but you don't have the right coloured beads? Well, today I'm going to show you how quick and easy it can be to dye your own. I like the RIT brand in dye. I have no affiliation with RIT. This is just a brand I like to use. You can buy it from Spotlight or online. It comes in both liquid and powder form. Now, there's no difference as far as colour or dye performance goes. It's just the liquid is already dissolved in water and is more concentrated than the powder. Now, there's heaps of different brands out there. There's also different ways of dyeing. So this is just how I like to do it. As always, don't be afraid to have a play and discover what works for you. The dyeing process is easier and a lot less messy if you have everything set up before you start. You might want to cover your bench tops with newspaper, maybe wear an old top or an apron and possibly wear gloves. I prefer not to, but again, that is personal preference. But you will be surprised at just how easily this stuff can splash, and it will. It stains everything it touches. So if you get dye on the stove or the bench, wipe it up straight away. I find Jif is a really good product for removing spots that you don't find until a couple of hours later if it's needed. Okay, so this is what I use to dye my beads. Everything here is from the $2 store. You don't need an expensive setup. I put this little kit together for the sole purpose of dyeing. None of this stuff is used for food preparation. I made this little basket by pushing the mesh out of a hand strainer and then kind of scrunching it together to shape it. You could also use a coffee filter. It just needs to be something that will keep the beads above the base of the pot so that they can dye evenly. Your beads can be loose or in a strand. If they're stranded, make sure they're not jammed tightly together. We need spacing between the beads so the dye can cover the whole bead. So I work out how many beads I need in each size and then I add an extra 3 or 4 beads. Even though the beads have come from the same packet and will be in the same dye bath, it's not unusual to get some colour variation. This was the last time I did some dyeing. You can see there are 2 rogue beads in there. They're not even green. So I like to cover my bases. I might have some that don't dye properly, or I might drop a couple of beads that I never find. Dyeing a couple of extra ones means I'll have enough for my project, and if I don't end up using them in the project, they get used somewhere down the track eventually. So I've just got some water in here that's starting to boil. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. And if we were using our liquid dye, we'd give that a really good shake and then add our dye. I'm using powder today, so the addition is a little different. My water's just boiled, so I'm going to turn it right down. Just adding a small amount of powder. A little bit of a stir to disperse the powder. Now I'm going to bring that up to a simmer. Okay, so I have my beads in my basket. I'm going to pop them in so they are fully covered and let them simmer. So the length of time the beads need to be submerged in the dye depends on the intensity of the colour you want. If you want a light shade, they'll only need a quick dip. If you want a darker colour, leave them in for longer. So if I take those out, you can see they've already started to turn soft pink. So the big variables here are your water to dye ratio and the length of time you leave the beads submerged. The colour can change really quickly, so watch closely and remove the beads from the dye as soon as you see the colour you want. It's always better to take them out too soon. Check them, put them back in if need be. So you can always go darker. Going lighter means starting again with new beads. Okay, these have been in about 3 or 4 minutes, so I'm going to take them out. Take the dye off the heat and rinse them under the tap. Now you can see I've got a nice pink colour. If I wanted that more red, I would have to put them in for longer and possibly add a little bit more dye. So we can have lots of fun with mixing our colours. Just remember your basic colour mixing rules. So 2 primary colours will give you a secondary colour. For example, mixing blue and yellow will give you green, mixing red and blue will give you purple, and mixing red and yellow will give you orange. The mixing ratio of these 2 primaries will determine the colour of your secondary. So if you were mixing an orange, for example, if you had more red than yellow, you would end up with a reddish orange. Whereas if you had more yellow than red, it would be a yellowish orange. And that's it. Enjoy making fabulous colours. See you next time.